Hello, hello. So, um, I wanted to do a quick tutorial about using blockers in Katana because I had a question that someone asked me about having a blocker which is not parented, which is not a child of your light. So, um, what do I mean by that? So, let's just create a new. I'm just going to throw down a new rig and add maybe a rectangular light. Let's grab that. I'm going to scale it up, maybe like so. Let's look through that. And say I have this light positioned where I want it to be. And then I want to create a blocker for that light. So normally what you would do is you'd go um, add a PMI light filter and you'll use any of the light filters that you need. So in my case, I want to use a blocker because the question was about a blocker. So I create a blocker, and what happens is that light is the parent of that blocker, and when you want to reposition the light, that blocker kind of moves along with it. And if you go here and select the blocker, you should be able to see the blocker here, and I go reposition the blocker where I want it to be. Say I want to keep it here, and maybe I don't want it to be so big. Maybe I'm trying to block out the light from this arm. Let's keep it around there. So as you can see that this should work. So if I uh, preview that, something that would help me would be to mute these lights and have some exposure on this one. Let's make that 5. Let's see what we get. I'm doing a control backslash to re-render, and you can see that that light is blocking out this area, and let's make that maybe 8. And we get the light on the other parts except the arm, so that's being blocked off. We could also, like, if you wanted to, invert the blocker, then this should make it more clear. You will be able to see the opposite of what we saw earlier. I go to the catalog and make this the B. So it's doing the opposite now of what we had before. Right. So our blocker works, and this is what we want. Now, at some point, you want to change the position of the light, and what's going to happen is if I select the light, if I move the light, Now because the light is the parent of the blocker, you are going to end up repositioning the blocker also along with the light. So there are a couple of things you can do to avoid this. Um, the first thing that I like to do is if I don't have any plans of repositioning the light, and if I want, say, multiple lights affecting the same blocker, I would end up using what is called a light. It's called a light filter reference instead of using creating a blocker under the light. So what do I mean by that? Let's say I don't want this blocker. Let's just delete that. Or I can keep that blocker and maybe not have it under the light. So you can see I can drag it out. So now that's not uh, part of the light. It's separated. So it goes back to 0, 0, 0. So bring it back. So tiny. So I gotta increase the size. So earlier it was corresponding to the size of my light. Now it's no longer linked to the light, so it's really small. So I need to make it bigger. And something I like doing now is to, like, say my blocker was way over here and I want to quickly position it there. I can use this snap to vertex, and drag it over there so it quickly snaps in position. So now what I want to do is have this blocker linked to this light, not in a way as it was previously, but independent of that light, but it should still contribute to what is happening on that light. So I go add a filter reference, and then if you see the parameters of the filter reference, you can see that they are empty except for this one under object called reference path. So what I like to do is I can just do a control C copy and control V here, and then what has happened now is this blocker controls uh, this reference. So if I were to go preview render this now, you will see that that totally works, right? So now I can move this light independently without affecting the blocker, and it's going to stay where it is and not move along with the light. I know this is really simple stuff, but somebody asked me, so here it is. So if I were to render that, I've changed the position of the light, and it's no longer linked to the blocker is no longer linked to the light. All right. Um, while we are here, let's just also see another thing that you might like to try. Say, if you've used 3ds Max, you know that you can instance lights, and it's extremely powerful to have that ability to instance your lights. So you can use control one light and you end up controlling all of them at once. So it's really cool to have that. And we can have something similar here in Katana um, by using what we call a template material. So if you want to use a template material, what you need to do is, let's say we will get rid of this blocker, and I want to have a few rectangular lights here. Maybe they are recessed ceiling lights, for example, and I want to have control over them. So I'll roughly place this like so. Maybe duplicate them around a few times. So I'm going to go duplicate. You can see I can do Control D just like in Maya. So I can do Control D here and maybe move that there. I moved the wrong light, that's okay. And maybe one more time. Select that. If you turn the sync selection on, then I can select them at the same time. So whatever I have selected here will also get selected here. But I tend to keep this off because sometimes I end up moving the wrong lights. So I have these 4 lights. So now in Katana you can select all of them and move them. This was not available before. It was extremely painful to select multiple objects and move them around. So now you can. So we have these 4 lights, and they have individual parameters. Right now, because they are duplicates, they have the same parameters. But if you were to uh, have multiple lights and you want to control all of them using control all of them in one place, what you would do is you would create uh, a template material like this, and you can say um, add, I want to add light, change that to your uh, hold on a second, add, we want to do PRMAG, not USD, sorry, light, and I will get rid of that. Sorry, I'm going to make this black light, and then so the name that you give here for this material right here, so it says template material, I'll say master material for now. I call it master material, and now this, let's make this say 4. I'll give it an exposure of 4 to begin with, and I'll make this a kind of bluish, and I can add, I mean this is basically direct light. You can add a map, or you can do whatever you want to. But how do we link this to all of these lights now? The way you do that is select a light, go under shader here, and if you get to Click on. Come on. Why is that? Oh yeah, I know what that is. Where that is. So it's under the shader here. Yeah. So this is what you got to do. You got to go and select the master material here. Double click and choose the master material here for these four lights. So that's the original now. And these, if you go and select, you will see under material, if you remove the overrides, you get an R which says reference. So normally I create the lights, I don't change any of the parameters and just create a master material and change the parameters there. So I would just remove those local overrides, and what you get is this material controlling all of these lights now. So if I were to select these guys, and let's do, I'm going to shift click to do a live render for this guy also, and do a live render this time, so we can change the parameters and have them update simultaneously. So, as you can see, it's pretty low. Let's make this, just attach this here so it's not, let's frame that. Let's make this 10. There we go. And you will see that all of them change when I do that. So you can have local overrides on these lights, but because they are sort of like a reference, so if I were to go make this one more warmer, and then if I wanted to, up until here, they are like sort of like instances, but then I can also have individual control over these lights if I wanted to, but then that becomes a local override. So only that light will have that local override. Wanted to make that one cooler, you can do that. All right. So uh, that's it. I just wanted to show these things, and see you in the next one.